Yo, what is going on, Guardians? J-Man here, and today we're talking about sunsetting gear in Destiny 2. This is obviously one of those hot topics that seems to divide the community right down the middle. On one hand, you have those who would love to keep the hard-earned loot that they've grinded for, and on the other, those that would prefer to see the game rapidly innovate, thus leaving behind their old toys for shiny new ones. I personally think that both groups have their valid points, and there probably isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. But I do think that the Destiny 2 sandbox is getting a little cluttered, causing issues across the game. For example, every exotic armor piece that gets released has the ability to synergize with more and more items in the sandbox. And on paper, this sounds pretty awesome from a build crafting perspective, but it comes at a price. Lately, it feels like there are so many possible combinations that the devs oversee problematic synergies in the Crucible. A good example is how many weapons pair with Gerfalcon's Halberd, and you begin to wonder if Bungie considered how strong something like Arbalest is while wearing this chest piece. This has frequently affected PvE, where exotics need to be disabled for months at a time because they synergize with other sandbox items in unintended ways. I can't even remember if Blight Ranger is still disabled or not. When you combine the amount of armor and weapons with all these complex systems like aspects, fragments, and armor mods, it only continues to get messier. And aside from bugs and annoying loadouts in PvP, you also have to think if we will ever run out of loot to chase. For me personally, I've been wearing the same legendary armor for years now because they have really good stat rolls, thus making all new armor obsolete minus the cosmetic value. The same applies to weapons. I don't really care for new energy SMGs when I already have Callus Mini Tool, Funnel Web, and Out of Bounds. And in reality, does any of this even matter when Witherhoard destroys every ad in the game? You could argue that Bungie just needs to continue to make better loot, but that brings us back to the never-ending power creep cycle. So hopefully you see my point. As the sandbox grows and grows and grows, it becomes more complex, causing more issues while making future gear more obsolete. Now you can probably tell by the tone of my words that I'm kinda in favor of sunsetting. And not just legendary weapons and armor like the most recent sunsetting we experienced, but exotics as well. Yet I do understand why folks want to hold on to their hard-earned loot, but where do we draw the line in the progression of the game? Do we use Mountaintop and Recluse in perpetuity? Or do we throw things like Galahorn and Luna faction boots into the Destiny content vault so new gear can get its time to shine? Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's probably no one-size-fits-all answer, but I do have a few ideas that won't require a lot of compromises. Perhaps Bungie should reduce their emphasis on developing new loot and instead focus on the activities in which we use the loot. As someone who plays 30 plus hours a week, I still have not been able to craft and earn all the gear I wanted to throughout Witch Queen. So instead of pouring more and more loot into the ever-growing sandbox, focus on giving us more strikes or engaging endgame activities that challenge us to build craft with our current tools. Another idea would be, instead of making brand new exotics, focus on revamping some of the older ones. We kinda saw this with Hawkmoon's return in Destiny 2. Hawkmoon's exotic perk was heavily changed, thus making it feel like a new weapon even though it did retain some of its identity. This would be a great way to introduce new ways to play the game without actually increasing the size of the sandbox. But what do you think? Should Bungie go ahead and sunset a large chunk of the sandbox to make room for what's new? Should we hold on to our gear for the rest of our Destiny lives? Or can you think of a solution that maybe no one else has thought of? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the gameplay, please help me out with a like and sub to the channel. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the Cosmodrome.